All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bear's Guide to a 5. Today, we're talking about guest workers and unauthorized workers. It's a really quick video, but super important information as always, so we're going to fly through this pretty quick. So, what the heck is a guest worker? Okay, jumping right in. So, a guest worker are legal workers who are invited to work inside of a country before they will eventually go home. Now, it's a win win. It helps both countries. For the lesser developed country, where these people are internationally migrating from in the search of jobs as the pull factor, it's great because they can get jobs, they can earn some money, and they can send money back as remittances. That is a special vocab word. It literally is what it means, just money sent back to families. And it's great for the developed country, mostly, because they're going to get these wage laborers that don't want to do the jobs that people who live in the developed countries want to do. Like in the pictures that you see, agricultural work, labor work, doing any type of laborious work, people just don't want to do in the developed world. So it's great because these migrants can come in, they can knock it out, they can make some money, and they go back home. But obviously, that doesn't work. Guest workers don't want to go home. Shocker. When you go to a new place and you can make money and it's safe and it's secure and you have a place to live and a steady job and all these things, you don't want to go back to where you came from because you left that country because there was a lack of jobs, there's a lack of resources, or maybe it's not safe, right? So instead, we experience this thing called chain migration. People overstay those guest worker contracts, or they become citizens and they go through the process and then they go, well, I really want my family here, so they practice this idea of chain migration, where then they will bring other or the rest of their family, and then eventually they'll tell their friends about it and the opportunities, and then they will migrate there and go through the process and so on and so forth. But the problem with this is that you know when these guest workers come and they become citizens and they did this hard work, maybe it was agricultural, maybe it was labor intensive. Well, when they have their kid, they're not going to want that kid to grow up and do the same thing as them. It's not like they tell their kid, like, oh, I can't wait for one day where you get to work as hard as I do for little money. Like, no, they tell their kids, go to school, become educated, get a profession, you know what I mean? And then they become contributing citizens of that country with a skilled job. But that's a slight problem for the developed country in the first place, because now they need more workers, right? They need people to do this job. So then we need more low wage laborers, and that leads to more overall guest workers. But the thing that can happen is this aspect of brain drain. And this is what people are critical of the developed world, because they're saying, the developed world is taking these talented, trained people from countries that need them. And then on top of it, when they go to the developed world, they don't always get to use that trained or specialty skill. And they're just doing like wage labor. So, it's good for the developed nation in a way. It's bad for the developed nation in a way. It's good for the developing nation in a way, and it's bad for a developing nation in a way. There's lots of questions to ask. So, where do guest workers generally happen? So, guest workers, this is something that only exists in Europe, right? European countries have these plans for guest workers. They have these contracts set up, and of course, the migrants are coming from North Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia because those are the closest places. Remember, our international rules of migration say that people will move to the closest place possible, right? You don't see people from Africa or the Middle East migrating across the Atlantic Ocean getting to the United States. It doesn't make sense when they can just go to Europe. Now, in the United States, we do something a little different. We have unauthorized migrants, right? We need someone to do these jobs that we don't want to do, right? And we don't have guest worker laws. So, what ends up happening is that people just come into the country who are unauthorized, or maybe they have some temporary authorization to be inside the United States. But eventually, they either are going to overstay those authorizations, or they're going to go through the process of getting documentation and becoming a citizen. But in the meantime, they are technically unauthorized. And those people will do the jobs that people don't want to do inside the US. And once again, they're not going to want to go back to their own country. They came to the United States for a reason, whether that be for economic safety, whether that be for political, cultural safety, social safety, whatever, right? People don't generally want to travel all the way back, especially when they traveled here in such dangerous conditions or dangerous ways. So once again, we experience that chain migration of convincing family members like, hey, come and live here. It's nice here. And then telling their friends and family back home, hey, you should come here. It's nice here. Now, the reason we use unauthorized migrant, that is the agreed scientific term by the people that count people. Like the people that count demographic data are like, hey, let's use unauthorized migrant, especially because this is such a controversial topic right now. But generally, people who use undocumented advocate for more rights and easier access to citizenship for migrants, while people who generally say illegal alien will advocate more for restrictions on migration and punishment for breaking these laws. So we just use unauthorized to remain unbiased. And that's it. What do you need to know today? Easy. What's the difference between a guest worker and an unauthorized migrant? What's the reason MDCs take in guest workers and unauthorized migrants? What's the reason that LDCs send these guest workers and unauthorized migrants? Make sure to think of speed, though, for both of these. And then finally, what are the consequences of guest workers and unauthorized migrants staying in the developed country? Mostly, what are the consequences demographically, economically? But you can talk about culture, you can talk about social, you can talk about the environment. Like, there's anything we could talk about. So anyway, as always, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell icon so you know when new videos drop so you can stay up to date on course material. And as always, this is Bears Guide 205. We'll see you next time.